Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to How to Win at Chess. This is a series where I take on my subscribers, I go up the rating ladder, and I walk you through every single phase of the game. And this is the 32nd episode of this series. In this episode, I'm going to be taking on strong intermediate and early advanced players throughout the episode. So you're going to be able to see what you need and what you are missing to get to that level. Always in the beginning of one of these episodes, I sort of talk about, I don't know, some sort of sponsor or product. All I like to say is, my book has the namesake of the series. That's why it's named How to Win at Chess. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I want you all to listen to me for like 30 seconds. There's this really cool, sibling product of the chess book. It's called the Chess Deck. This is the first in the world. It's actually the only one that exists right now. It's this beautiful, very nice set of cards. And I would recommend getting this for somebody in your life who really wants like a nice decoration. Or a nice brick to hit somebody with, but also if they want to learn chess. And this is a really cool way to do it. There's these really big interactive cards. They teach you, look at this, how to move the pieces. And there's like openings in here and historical games. And it is very nice. So it's available for pre-order now. And it's a sibling product of How to Win at Chess, the book. So you want to buy your significant other a present? You want to buy mom or dad or a friend or a dog a present to chew on? There you go. That's something that you can do for yourselves. No, it is very nice, and they did a great job with it, and I will put a link in the description. Here we go. Like I said, today is going to be late intermediate, early advance, and my first opponent is rated 1200. I don't know why I put 1400 up here. I should have put 1200. So we're playing against, okay, e4. I've played everything, obviously. Let's play a Sicilian. I never played the Sicilian defense, ever. Like, literally ever. I kind of want to branch out a little bit, play some different openings. The Sicilian defense is one of the most confrontational. It fights for the center with a flank pawn. Knight c3 is not the most common move. The most common way to play the Sicilian is knight here and a pawn push in the center to trade. My opponent could still do that, but for now... this is an indication that they would maybe like to do something else. And the stronger you get at chess, the better you're going to understand, well, let's see what they do. It's most common to develop the knight after developing the pawn on c5, knight f3, and like we see there, the pawn can go to d4 next. Now, there is one drawback of this setup is that now I actually can play e5, whereas if my opponent had just developed traditionally with the knight and then pushed, I can't do that. But we'll analyze that after a little bit. Knight f3. A lot of different Sicilians exist. The most principled is, and one of the easiest to know how to play, is called the Dragon Sicilian with pawn to g6 and bishop to g7. Now, we do, in fact, get this trade. And we are in the Dragon main line. This is the accelerated Dragon defense. We target the center with the knight and the bishop. The best way for white to play is put the bishop out, put the queen out, hit us with a little long castles. And the best way for us to play is to castle our king this way, and then we get into a big fight. So, Sicilian Dragon, very reputable opening, very easy to play because the ideas are relatively straightforward. The hard part about the Sicilian becomes, what if white doesn't play into this position? And there is a lot of that in the Sicilian. I don't like that my opponent is thinking, but again, this is like that early to late intermediate level where you do have to know some of the ideas of your opening, and the best idea here is to defend. You really never want to go back to the home square because you've just kind of wasted time. Right now I'm going to play, I can develop and castle. In general, it's a good idea to not allow a knight in the center to get hit with a pawn. Like, it's better to go d6, knight f6. But in this particular case, this move is fine. Notice that our knight targets their pawn. It is protected. But if the pawn goes forward, suddenly, even though we only have one piece looking at it, and they have one defender, after e5, knight g4, we now have 3 pieces looking at that pawn, and that pawn perishes. So my opponent should probably develop a bishop and castle, or should develop this bishop and try to castle. Great move. I mean, if I just said that and they did it, it's probably good. We're going to castle now. They might learn from me. They might not. They might do something else. They might develop this bishop. But we've sort of fulfilled our plans, and we're just going to play simple chess, put the pawn out to d6. That's a weird move. I don't quite understand what that's trying to do. Or my opponent trying to play this like a Magnus Sicilian a little bit? I'm really not sure. By the way, d5 is also completely reasonable. Trying to trade. A lot of good options here. Oh, they are trying to play it like a Magnus Sicilian. Wow. The Magnus Sicilian being an opening where you play pawn to d4, you trade, and then you draw back. That's very interesting. Well, now we have many plans. When this pawn goes here and the bishop comes out, you know, we're looking over there. I'm thinking about bishop g4. The only reason I would trade on f3 is because it damages the pawns, and then I can go after and create a forking situation. It's not a guarantee, which is why the move bishop to g4 is okay, but again, you need to be able to explain why you're trading a bishop for a knight. Otherwise, it's just a bad decision. For instance, if my opponent went there and traded for my knight on the next move, I would not be able to explain that move, right? Like, I don't know why you would do that. Whereas I'm going where I'm going because I want to take. It might not be the best plan, but it is my plan, right? And so now I can play knight d4 or knight e5, and we are sort of starting to see why it wasn't really the best plan, because it's kind of very easy to defend. I mean, white, you know, can just protect the pawn. White doesn't have to lose anything. But that's chess, right? That's sort of how it works. And if I had gotten, you know, the chess deck, I would have known better. No, just kidding. I am hypothesizing my opponent is going to be castling queenside here, because the king is so open there. Queen e2 makes sense. Now, do we take the bishop, or do we like where our knight is? What are we trying to do? Do we like pinning the knight to the... You know, that move doesn't look that bad. Rook c8 doesn't look bad. A lot of you would take, but the art of getting better at chess is if you don't have to take, you don't have to take. You know, you're not under attack. So an improving move like one of these two is good. Let me go out here with the queen. What you'll learn in the Sicilian defense is the queen is a very powerful attacking piece. And here it's eyeing the queen side, where if my opponent's king is going to go, I probably want some presence there. That was not the best move. The best move was probably jumping in to take advantage of the dark squares. Ugh. And the way you learn to take advantage of squares like this, like these little knight hops, I'll show you. I'll show you as we progress. Now, right away, I'm thinking, all right, I don't even have to hesitate here. I have a rook on the c-file. There's a king on the other side. It's a move you don't really have to think too much about. So I have a direct idea, which is to get the knight and the bishop for my rook, at which point I will be completely winning because my opponent loses two important defenders. Now, I do have a great reason to trade knight for the bishop here, and that reason is, if I had taken a moment ago, I'm not doing damage to the pawns, but now I am. I am creating a doubled, isolated pawn, and right away I'm asking myself, what if I just attack the pawn? Like, what if I play queen c5 or queen b4 or queen a6, queen c... I actually cannot tell the difference. So let's just go here, and I mean, how is my opponent going to defend their pawn, right? Maybe I could have gone to a6, maybe to c7, maybe to c5, not d5, but c5. And we do have to remember that we have pieces on opposite sides. We have bishops on the same diagonal. Very easy to forget about that. But it is true, and if my opponent plays a move like knight d5, I may need to take, and then, you know, we're going to get chaos. Chaos on the board. But once I get in over here, I think it's going to be bad news for my opponent. I'm going to take, double up, and I'm going to have, you know, all these pieces barreling down. You can trade the queen. You also don't have to trade the queen. You can play rook c4. But the thing to remember with a move like rook takes pawn is your queen is defending. So if you take with the rook, you got to make sure that you're not getting deflected anywhere. For instance, I calculated pawn to a3, which is a very reasonable move. And if I had to move my queen far away, I would lose my rook. But luckily, I have queen c... I mean, not luckily. It's how chess works, right? Now, bishop a3 doesn't work because I can take and I can take. See, by the way, very, very smart move. If I couldn't go here, like if I had a pawn on that square, I would be in trouble because I would not have a queen move that saves my rook. If that was the position, what I would need to do is probably give up my rook for the knight. Right? Does that make sense? I hope it does. Now we go here. Everything is defended. We have a battery. We're about to have a triple battery on the c-file, at which point white is in trouble. White is in a lot of trouble. But white might have been in trouble when they volunteered to play, so it's okay. All right. Now we pause. Take a moment. We breathe. We take a sip of our leftover coffee. I can't take that. But I do see a tactic here. Now, I might get tunnel vision and play a move like rook to c8, which is also a perfectly reasonable move, but there actually is bishop to h6. And the way you would locate a move like bishop h6 is you should always see the checks. And that is a check. That move was not useful a moment ago, but it's quite useful now. And that is just, we're just going to be picking up a rook. So that's a straight up pin. Rook c8 is next. Now, the only drawback to the move bishop to h6, the only thing I can like conjure up as a drawback is the fact that the dark squares will be weak near our king. That is a true squares. But the relative value of our bishop is probably a solid 3.5. And by the way, if you don't have to take, that's the lesson in this game. Don't take. Nobody can get in the way. So now, okay, now we should take. And now the easiest way to win a winning position, you don't have to do this. I'm getting the knight, and I'm getting the bishop. When it all gets cleared out, when it all gets settled, I'm going to be up a knight, and I think a pawn. Now we can take one more pawn. I'm sensing the king is going to be very, very, very worried here, and I'm going to go up and over, and I'm just threatening a checkmate. That's mate. And now the only move is queen b5. And pre-move that. This was a good move, but it should have been played a move prior. So that was a good game, and I think, I mean, not to compliment myself, but we're taking a look at how to handle the Sicilian defense, and I thought it was reasonable. It's a little bit better for white in the beginning to start with knight f3, because once you allow me to put the knight on c6, if I really want, I can just close the whole center. Now, this has been played, and the Sicilian has many branches. This was all fine, but this was bad. And my opponent, if they're gonna play the open Sicilian, you have the responsibility of understanding what's next, and that's why entering the Sicilian is scary for white. And maybe there's simpler Sicilians out there. For example, if you're 1200, you may just like the Alapin with a very straightforward plan of just putting 2 pawns in the center, and then you don't need to worry about black playing the dragon like I did in this game, or the knight, or for some other thing. But you do have to know how to handle the opening, because if you start going back, this opening can sometimes play itself. Like, it is very easy. Black gets this setup, and I went bishop g4, which I thought was smart, and then I traded, which I thought was okay. This is a slight inaccuracy because it simply allows white to defend, but now the best move is not this. The best move, as far as I'm concerned, is definitely fighting for these dark squares. The computer really likes both of these moves. And the way you come up with a move like knight h5 is you have to think of it like this. We traded a bishop for a knight, so we lose a light squared piece, but they lose a light and dark squared piece. We have 3 pieces fighting for dark squares. They have only 2. This bishop does not fight for dark squares. It means the dark squares are a little bit better, right? So we can play moves like this. You can't play bishop h6 now, but that is kind of the idea. But the way I attack down the c file, very thematic in the Sicilian defense. And yeah, queen b4 is not necessarily the best, but it is very simple, very straightforward. And it's very important how we did it here. Bishop h6, rook c8. This is exactly how you play an open Sicilian defense, particularly a dragon, when they castle on the queen side. But a lot of things have to be met. You have to play, they got to play e4 for you to play Sicilian. They got to play the open Sicilian, which my opponent sort of did. But then he didn't play it the most accurate way, right? Then they got to castle queenside, which my opponent did. If they castled kingside, the game plan would have been slightly different. But that is how you play a Sicilian dragon. Opposite side castling. I thought it was pretty instructive. Let's start the next game. I will play with the white pieces. My opponent is not online. All right. Let's see. This happens sometimes. Maybe I spelled their name wrong. That also happens. Recruiting people and, you know, you might accidentally make some sort of mistake. It happens. All right. That was my mistake. That's kind of funny. I put a 0 instead of an O in a username. Ugh, so difficult. I played a lot of different openings. So let's play d4. Let's just play a Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit, knight f3. Maybe we'll play a Catalan with knight f3, g3. Catalan, one of the best openings out there. You can start with d4, c4. One just quick little sprinkle of knowledge. One of the ways to completely shut down your opponent's tricks, like for example, they might play the Budapest Gambit. You can start with knight f3, and now, you know, you're going to play c4 anyway. So the move knight f3 is slightly limiting because there might be systems where you don't want to play it. You want to play c4, knight c3, e4, but overall it's a very flexible move. Now we can play like Magnus with g3, or we can play c4. I mean, both are okay. I can start with this, and then I will play c4 later. I mean, they're pretty similar. Like sometimes black can play b5, you know, but overall, it's a Catalan either way. You can play bishop g2 or whatever. I'm gonna play a pure Catalan, and this is one of the most annoying openings that exists in chess. All right. It's a battle of will black take on c4 or will black play solidly? How are they going to play it? The main line is to capture the pawn, and you know, white then tries to win it back. At 1400, nobody really knows the cutting edge theory of the Catalan. At 2700, they do. Like, I'm familiar with many lines here. Yeah, this is a very common move by black to play b6. And now white can continue to apply pressure. But actually, the move b6 is already a relatively big commitment. And you might remember in the last game how we used the c-file. We're going to take. Now that black has committed to putting the bishop on b7, we're going to capture now. Because the bishop on b7 will be a little bit stuck. Right? The bishop will be stuck behind the pawn when it gets there. And our next few moves are going to be knight c3, bishop to f4, rook c1, and knight to e5. Develop, target the queen side, hop into the center, use the c-file. And I mean, like, the plans of the Catalan flow, you know? They sort of are very easy to implement. And sometimes your opponents, especially at the intermediate level, you'll feel like you're just melting people. At a higher level, people sort of prep like 15, 20 moves deep in the Catalan. Like, b6 is already an inaccuracy. You will never see b6 at master level. Because for masters, you know, they need to capture the pawn and hang on tight, and I don't understand what just happened. Why did my opponent give me another pawn? You know, I think it's kind of like more instructive if I allow my opponent to take back and just play like that never happened, because the truth is this is the best move and I'm just going to be up a pawn, but in most of your games, knight a6 will not be played. Like, you're going to see a position that looks like pawn takes pawn. Does that make sense? This is the best move, but it's not something you can replicate over and over. So I'm just going to go here. I don't know why my opponent didn't take the pawn on d5. That was... Why are they not... I mean, I'm going to do one more move, and then if they don't take my pawn on d5... Why is my opponent not taking? I don't... Like, I'm trying to just show you how to play with the open c-file. Are they just panicking a little bit? I don't know what's happening. Like, do they think they're blundering? I mean, I get it. You're playing me, right? So, like, you might play me, you might get nervous, you might do so. I don't know. Is this deliberate? Why? I mean, I'm running out of moves. Okay, I guess I will take and take. I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't know. Are they gonna let me take again? I'm so... Yeah, but now I'm just up a pawn. I don't know what happened. I was trying to give it back. All right, that was admittedly a bit odd, but I will show you in the analysis afterward, I guess, how to handle the position. Now the game plan changes, obviously, because we have two central pawns. So I'm looking down here, I'm looking down here. I mean, we can still play a move like rook c1. We can play e4 to take the big center. At some point, black might go here. Let's play e4. You know, the knights support the pawns, and we're threatening a fork. So a lot of even intermediate players have blind spots with forks in the center. A lot of people just forget the pawns can walk forward. I think my opponent just either got nervous or panicked, or I'm not sure. I mean, all I did was take on d5. I really didn't do anything that special, but it happens. And then sometimes people are really upset afterward. They're like, I can't believe I played like that. But it's life. It's okay. That's a move. So now I'm thinking d5 attacks the bishop. e5 attacks the knight. Knight to e5 attacks the queen. They all look, I mean, good. I would say avoid getting blockaded by a knight. That's a mini lesson. If you can play a move where the knight doesn't just hop into the middle of everything, so we can discard this. That's a little lesson for you. d5 is fine, but the bishop will come over here. I would say, you know, jump in with the knight, especially if your knight can't be attacked easily. Like making an improving move like this and then building behind the knight is very decent. Also, keeping an eye on the things in your opponent's position that are unprotected. Those two things are unprotected, so a move like queen a4 will have a lot of power behind it, because then I will win a pawn, and then I will try to escape. But if I don't get trapped, well, now I can't play queen a4, so that's that. I want to go d5, but there's a little tactical problem with that move, is that my knight stops having a protector. So after d5, my opponent can take, which is a very easy thing to overlook. Very easy to blunder that, actually. So improving move, bringing another piece, right? This is something we need to get better at as an intermediate. Just make a move that brings a piece to the table, to the party, that doesn't overcommit. Also, I have spent 28 seconds on the last 3 moves that I've played. 28, 28, and 23. Bad time management, but I'm obviously trying to be instructive. Several moves ago, I had like a 1.5 minute time advantage. If you're playing blitz, you got to sustain that, right? And I'm not the best person to, you know. Don't study my games. I spend way too much time. Rook to 8 is a very reasonable move. It's a very good move. Targeting my pawn. I mean, I'm a little worried about something like c5, but not like insanely worried. I think I'm just going to bring another rook, right? So now both my rooks are playing. When the knight moves, I will have something. This can be targeted with the pawn, but then I will push. And this move actually kind of sneakily defends that knight. Sneakily. When I say sneakily, remember earlier the bishop could take? Not anymore. Not anymore, because my knight will be defended. Could I have joined with a move like f4? Some of you might be wondering, you know, could I have played f4, f4, f5? Probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, you know, I don't really want to default to that, but like pushing pawns in front of my king. But f4 is a very reasonable move to defend the knight. In fact, I can probably go for it now. I can probably go d5 now as well. My opponent cannot take the bit with the bishop. But more importantly, my pawn has 4 defenders, and I'm just kind of making it more safe. Like a move ago, it was not particularly safe. Now it's quite safe. The bishop will move, my knight will be targeted, and then I will need to decide whether to defend it or move it. Yeah. Tough to say. Like, you can defend it, but you might get stuck. There's actually a really beautiful move. If I play queen d4, it's a big mistake. There is c5. Now, yeah, I'm going to show, you know, I can play f4, but it's not always a good idea to weaken your king. There's going to be potential problems here, like queen e7, queen c5. This is an instructive move. I mean, I can probably trade. I can go back. We're up a pawn, so as long as trading is not, you know, causing any sort of big damage, we can make an exchange there. Bishop takes. I can use my queen, I can use my pawns to go forward, like I can play e5, for example. Now we won connect 4, which is quite nice. We have a little bit more space in the center. A big mistake would be to move the c-pawn now, because it would give me a connect 5, which is bad enough. But my pawn would just be a huge problem for black to deal with. And slowly, you know, we will hunt down the queen side. Like, we will play queen c2, which is very typical Catalan style. I can take, but then the queen is getting active. But, and there is literally no need to take, by the way. Like, for instance, I can play queen b3 and just sort of ask, what was the idea of this move? And the point of this move is that I'm getting closer to targeting my opponent's queen side. So for example, I can move my knight, and then I'm attacking this pawn. And my knight stops guarding this, but the queen is guarding it. So we'll see if my opponent notices that the pawn is hanging. I need to save myself time as well for the scramble. I can start pushing through. Yeah, I mentioned how this move would, might be a mistake. This move is a mistake. It is very natural here to play a move d6, but I'm going to show you how to spot tactics from a little while away. After it takes, knight takes, we actually can take with the rook because we have a discover check. Takes. And if the knight takes on c6, yeah, we can take with the rook. And knight to f6 is a discovered attack on the queen. It's very important that the queen cannot take the knight. That is very, very important. My opponent plays rook d3. Counterattack. Defended by the bishop, so now I will slide out of the way, protect my rook. And black is going to play fast because they don't want to lose on time. Rook here is a trade. I'm going to take with the knight or the pawn. The knight kind of controls a little bit more space. That is, unfortunately, free. And now the easiest thing to do is just to go all the way down. So I'm going to play rook d1. My opponent should make a luft. Make sure, yeah, good move. Doing what you can, but I'm still coming down there. Got a trade. Great move, by the way. This is excellent stuff by black, trying to survive. You got to go here now if you want to. Yeah, wow. Wow. Really impressive. This is seriously impressive defense here, I got to tell you. Yes, now, I mean, I'm winning, but like, I gotta hold my nerves here. I gotta like not blunder a checkmate or somehow. Luckily, I can tuck away to h1, but my opponent ran out of time. Of course, it is losing, but my idea here was to threaten queen f8 and bishop f3, which is checkmate in 2. So it's checkmate in 2 moves. Not if this move is played, actually, but like, let's say here. That also stops it. This, it's mate in 2. Queen f8. Bishop f3. Okay, that was weird though, because I tried to play a Catalan, which I thought was pretty reasonable, and then my opponent played knight a6 and rook b8, which gave me a +4 advantage. I'm really not sure why they did that. I don't know. Maybe they panicked. Yeah, I mean, of course, after c takes d5, black will go here. I will play knight c3, bishop b7, bishop f4, and the best way for black to play is probably some sort of, c5, or so they might play knight bd7, I would play rook c1, and maybe c5. And like, this would be our battleground. We would play this position. And in the Catalan, what you do with white is you try to hop in with a horse, try to play something like knight to e5, and you have long-term pressure on the position with a lot of your pieces. It's a really great weapon. I mean, it really is. I would play it myself if, people at the master level didn't all prepare for 20+ moves. Like, master level chess has sort of killed chess a little bit. And yeah, I mean, when my opponent wasn't taking back and gave me this, then yeah, it became a lot easier. I don't know. It was definitely a bit strange. I thought I was playing, pretty well, pretty good improving moves. And maybe I made like 1 or 2 inaccuracies. But here, it's important to spot, like, for instance, if you got a tactics puzzle that was this, you were doing puzzles, you would spot knight f6 check because it's one of your only checks. It also happens to win a queen by discovered attack. Now, it doesn't work if the queen can take. So the way you spot these things is literally from back here. I mean, this is next level puzzle solving. What I just showed you, that one move tactic, you're going to get so good that you're going to spot things from 5 moves away. You're going to spot things from this position. You're going to say, oh, if knight e4, c6, I can take, rook takes, because then after queen c6, there's knight f6 check. Like, you're going to spot stuff like that. That's the next level. That was an interesting game. I'm going to have black in the next game. Yeah, I mean, if you blunder early, I'm going to have to win. My next opponent is also not online. That's weird. Please refresh chess.com Maybe I spelled this person's name wrong too. Totally possible. Hopefully not, though. Here we go. They are still not online. All right. That's good. Trying to film somehow to win at chess. How to win at chess. Let's see if I can maybe send a challenge to my opponent. Maybe a little bit of a challenge to my opponent. I don't know. I don't know why that's happening. Very strange. All right, I'm gonna challenge this person. Challenge. Dude. And I'm gonna play this game with the black pieces. If this doesn't work, then I don't even know what to do. Okay, all right, this is not working. I guess we will have to skip this person. I don't know why there are such technical difficulties, but you get to watch me struggle for like a minute or 2 minutes, so that's good. I will try one last time, and if this individual cannot figure, yeah, they just cannot figure it out. I don't know what's happening. All right, then I will play the next person. Okay. I think my opponent's streaming this game, by the way. 1700. This guy's a Brazilian, and also told me before the game that they were going to beat me. So I've played a lot of different stuff. I mean, I can play Caro Kann, I can play E5. Let's see what E4, E5 looks like. Knight F3. Knight C6. Should be 5. There's a lot of ways to play against the Spanish. My favorite way to play the Spanish is to play the Danish Gambit. Oh, my opponent played that very fast. Counter strike in the center of the board. Easiest thing to do here is probably to just take and put a knight on F6. So you can also take on D4. It is possible, but let's take here. And now don't blunder Queen H5 check. That would be very tragic. And we play this position. Of course, we can play like a million different Spanishes. You can play A6, you can play knight E7, you can play the Hikaru Spanish, which is bishop to C5. The plan here for black is to play bishop D6, because developing any other way is really difficult. If you play D6, the knight takes, which is no good. But bishop D6, and you can play Queen E7 and get rid of the piece. A6 is probably also okay, looking at it, but yeah, this is the way you get rid of the knight. You are just straight up threatening to capture it now, and you want them to take you, because then you get the pawn out, active bishop, life is good. Okay, cool. Right, just describe this move. We can take with this pawn, but then I don't open the bishop. So generally in E4, E5 structures, when there's a capture on C6, it's better to take away from the center, which is counterintuitive to basically everything you're taught. Now, some of you may be looking at this position and wondering, do I have a Greek gift? Can I play bishop takes H2 check? King takes, knight G4 check, king goes back, queen H4 checkmate on the next move. No. Not all the conditions are met, because the bishop can go to f4 and defend h2. And that's tough to see. You may look at me and go, how do you see that in 2 seconds? It's not. I've played chess for 20 years, so I kind of have to see stuff like that. I can't castle, which is mildly annoying. So what I can do is probably try to prepare a long castle with queen e7. I can also play bishop f5, queen d7, long castle. This move, to me, looks a bit more flexible because it protects my pawn, which is nice. And also, maybe I can trade his bishop, which I cannot do if I, commit the bishop to the f5 square. Okay, solid. We will continue to have a big battle defending this pawn. I imagine my opponent will play like bishop here and maybe a rook g1. I'm going to go long. This is a bit of a strange move. I mean, I get it. I get you're trying to send me a warning shot, but I don't believe that you have anything. Like, a5 is great. First of all, I can play a6, but second of all, what's the plan when I just say, no, thank you? Like, I'm not really interested. I don't know if there is a plan. And now, my friends, now, I am going to start some sort of attack over there. I don't know if I'm going to go for a Greek gift, because I still don't think it works. But the attack is looking mighty scary, potentially, over there. I just need to figure out exactly how. Like, knight g4, h3. Okay, I keep talking about bringing pieces to help. I'm going to bring a rook here. My opponent's going to play a6. I don't know what they're going to play after that. Yeah, like, just, defend. Just push. How is he getting through? How's he getting through? Maybe d5, but d5, you got to look at what's on the opposite sides of each other. Oh, it's such a shame the Greek gift doesn't work. But respect to my opponent who keeps playing every move basically instantly. Listen, opposite side castling. We just got to go for it. H5, H4. We're going to, just the way he pushed his pawns, I'm going to start pushing my pawns over there. But he's playing very well. He's playing fast. The only thing that's kind of keeping me from panicking is that I'm playing a subscriber. Like, if I was playing at 2700, I might be a little bit concerned, like, oh no, but see, I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I'm bringing my pieces. My queen is going to help. My rook is going to help. My pawn is far, so it's also going to help. And unfortunately, I don't think you can afford to lose pawns in front of your king, because now queen h4 doesn't work because of bishop g5. But I can go back, and that's bad. Now you lost the defense. Queen h4 is going to happen, unless bishop g5. You might find bishop g5. Ah, no. You played too fast. Played too fast. Yeah, now it's over. Played too fast. Yeah. No, I mean, we got into a very complicated game, and I think I like that. Kaspivara. Gary Kaspivarov. I don't know why my opponent is spending the most amount of time in the game on the move where he's about to get checkmated. Now maybe I'll rub it in once. And the reason I'm doing this is before the game, this person said that they would beat me. So I unfortunately have to rub it in slightly. Now I will sacrifice this bishop, and then I will checkmate them. Ay. Okay, we gotta analyze that. That was a little bit, I didn't love that. Let's analyze. Knight f3, Spanish, Yanish. Yanish is very tricky, or the Schliemann. It's got 2 names for some reason. The idea is that you want to go here, and the point is that it's actually kind of a reverse Vienna gambit. Any Vienna enjoyers know that in the Vienna, you gambit your f-pawn to push the e-pawn forward. Well, you do the same thing here. That's sort of the point. You gambit your f-pawn to push your e-pawn forward. Actually, white could get a very bad position very quickly. I mean, you play like queen g5, and, you take on f5, and suddenly you're just much better as black, which is sort of the point. My opponent played d4, which is a good move. And then here I played knight f6. The engine line is knight takes here. You have like c6. If queen h5, you have g6. White can sacrifice the bishop, but like nobody plays like this. I think it's much more human to play this move. Castles, bishop d6, and many people here against me play bishop f4. After queen e7, black is completely fine. And if you take, I'm more than completely fine, because you trade off your piece. So now I have 2 pieces active, right? Now, again, this doesn't work, because here, This looks like mate. It's not. Bishop f4. So you cannot do a Greek gift if at the end the opponent has a defensive move that diagonally or any other way defends the h2 pawn, or the h2 square rather. And so this was instructive how my opponent attacked me, but what's kind of crazy is black is already much better. The computer evaluates the prospects of attacking each other much better for black. It did not care to stop this advancement. It allowed but now that's sort of it. And the difference is that now when I start attacking, knight g4, all these different moves, they're all going to be quite brutal. I should have probably just gone knight g4, but I didn't know what to do after h3. The computer really likes shoving the knight in and then getting access to the f3 square by taking on h3, which is pretty hilarious. And now we see, yeah, this is bad news. Queen is coming. Queen is coming. Something like this. Knight g4. And unfortunately, my opponent did not protect their king. And that was that. I mean, but that is one way to play a very, very aggressive Spanish with a Yanish counterattack. My last opponent, I believe, is rated close to 1800. But I think still in the 17s. Maybe to replace the previous person, I can play somebody who's 1500, but unfortunately, I don't have any challenges. That was weird. I don't know what happened. 1772. That was when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, or maybe that was 1492. I played a Catalan. I can play a game of e4, and we're going to see what my opponent plays. Maybe we'll just play like a very simple Italian. Like we don't need to play a Vienna every game. It's a great opening, but now I can play the Spanish or I can play the Italian, which is just a very, very, very classic basic opening. The fried liver is very decent, but the thing is, as people get stronger, they start studying it and they learn all the theory and things like that. And so, yeah, they study everything. So we can just play a two knights. Two knights with d3. And we can play c3. This move has many purposes. It stops anything from coming in. It prepares d4. It also gives an escape for the bishop. You can castle. The move bishop g4 is aggressive and it's quite common, but it's not particularly scary because white, is not in any danger of the knight coming in over here. At the highest level, this is not considered completely accurate because the bishop sort of now has to hide in many lines. But it's completely fine. And then what white likes to do here is white likes to play knight bd2 and then advance and then very slowly and methodically prepare this move d4. So we're going to try to give you a master class in how to handle the Italian. One thing black can do is not castle and just start this pawn attack on white's king, but if defended properly, it is not that scary. I mean, even now, by the way, there is this very interesting move like g5, and I cannot take. This move to me, by the way, and this is important you pay attention to what your opponents are doing as well. This to me is a move that's indicating they want to go this way, which is why I'm now going to advance over there and tell them, you know what, if you do that, there's going to be a big attack. And I'm doing this because this type of pawn formation is very common in the gioco piano, the Italian game. But at the same time, if my opponent, castles that way now, it could be bad news. I mean, also this just straight up wins a bishop, right? So now I'm thinking for a moment, and there's a lot of like easy moves you can play in the Italian that don't really change the evaluation too much. So I'm going to make a little plan. I'm going to put my bishop back on b3, to put my knight on c4, and then to open up my dark squared bishop. That's my plan. I'd like to damage the structure. Okay, luckily I got my opponent to castle, so that's great. I'm going to continue to execute this plan. It doesn't really affect too much. And then a big question is, do I want to trade the bishop? Like, in many lines, trading the dark squared bishop is nice because this bishop doesn't bother me. At the same time, I can play here and try to take the knight and play a bit more like that. It all kind of seems all right. Let's go here. Let's try to damage the pawn structure for my opponent so that then we can exploit it. I do think this was the better move. And I also think I probably should have unpinned myself earlier. Because now when my knight, you know, is no longer protecting, if I unpin, there's bishop takes. Wow, my opponent is saying, take me. Take, huh? Very interesting stuff. It's about to get very, very spicy here, I feel like. Then I'm going to try to put my knight on f5. Very complicated game brewing here, potentially. Okay, let's go. Let's see who's the genius. I'm going to put my knight back, and we're going to try to exploit the light squares. Now, my opponent did this, so they can attack me on the king side, which it's going to become pandemonium now, right? Going to be absolutely crazy. Very interesting stuff. Also, that's a weak pawn, so I can kind of sneak an attack onto that pawn at some point. My opponent should probably reroute to fight for my knight maneuvers as well. And I do, you know, we want to keep a good amount of time on the clock that we're ready for the complications. One other thing, by the way, one other thing is that g4 is possible in some lines to just completely push back the bishop and sort of shut down my opponent's attack before it can get started. I can't quite move my queen because then bishop takes f3. I want to play knight f5, but then there's knight e7. So maybe g4 is the way to go. Just say, you want to attack me, it's just not going to work out. I also have king h2 and king h1, just kind of getting also out of the way of the attack. I expect one of these moves. My opponent is hitting me from far away with pieces. Knight d5 might have been also... Knight d5 was probably very good because I don't see an easy way to defend the f6 pawn. Now I might play it. Knight d5, but there might be rook g6. Would have been a bit more accurate to play that move a move earlier. g4. If bishop takes, I even wonder if my opponent can sacrifice on g4. Wow. This is getting kind of wild. Now, how about... I don't have knight takes e5, but it is a very cool looking move. And I also like b5 still. And I still like knight f5. Everything looks reasonable. Question is, which one do I play? Let's put the knight on f5. I think it's a very nice move. I think it disconnects a lot of what black wants. And wow, the position is very crazy. So I'm going to show you some tactics. I can't even fully explain them. Like I can mention them. Yeah. So I think now I can play knight takes e5 because I couldn't do it a moment ago, but there I will take the bishop. And if knight e5 bishop here, I can take on d7, and then I can take on f6. Oh my goodness, this is a crazy move, knight takes e5. Is there a queen f5 though? Might be. I completely missed this move. Queen takes f5, defending the bishop. And then my queen is hanging. I didn't even see that. I was trying to be instructive and trying to like explain everything, and wow. That is a really wild move. I mean, if my opponent finds that, they're a brilliant player. They did not find that. I got away with one though. Oh my. It's tough to play these series because I want to talk and I want to explain, and like I don't always have the luxury of doing that. Let's just trade the queens. If I trade, I can't blunder any more pieces. But that was crazy. We gotta take a look at that. And the bishops are of opposite color, which means the endgames tend to be a little bit drawish. But we're gonna do our best to win the game. I'm gonna play like g4. I have to sneeze. What? No, now I'm just up 2 pawns. Opposite color bishops endgame tend to be drawish because you can't really repel the enemy bishop, so you have to just, you know, work around it. Now I'm gonna seal this position. Probably just bring some help, and these pawns are just too strong, I imagine. Once you have a bishop surrounded by many pawns like this, it becomes very difficult for the defensive side, which is my opponent, because I'm up 2 pawns. Because black just runs out of space when these pawns are, and the bishops are all kind of protecting each other. So now what I should do is I should obviously avoid, blunders, but I can start trading very slowly and making my way into the black position. B5 might have been slightly rushed, but the idea is that after takes, the bishop is hanging, and then I make a couple of trades. It's the same. It's actually mirror image position, regardless of which pawn I take. But now we start taking the open file. It's important we keep enough pawns on light squares as well, because the enemy bishop is on a dark square, so they can't target those pawns. But we don't want to put every pawn on a light square, because then the black bishop becomes a beast. Just, conundrum. Everything is good. If you want to win an endgame that involves 4 rooks, you generally need to trade 1 pair. So it would be a good decision for me to trade 1 of the rooks, not both of them. Let's slowly bring our king to protect our pawn. Black is going to probably move in the center here, but because I control so much space, I think life is good. F6 is F6 would be great. I can't play it though, because they take. So rook b7 is on the cards. We opened up 1 infiltration spot. Now I can play f6, because my bishop is no longer protected. And f6 is a very nice move to play, because it completely shuts down the black king. So now black's king is stranded on the back rank, and I just need to... Oh, that was my Discord. I apologize. Thought I had streamer mode enabled. That was not your Discord. That was my Discord. Rook f8. Good idea. Yeah, now we should probably... There's a lot of ways to win. Rook here, take, rook f8, g7 here, check. Goes back f7. So, like I said, trade 1 pair of rooks. The defenses will go down. My opponent wants to play rook f8, so they're going to trade. They're going to play rook f8. Then I'm going to play rook g7, king h8, rook h7, king g8, f7 check, and I'm going to win the rook and resign. That allows checkmate. I just talked about this. Spotting tactics from the move before the tactic. Trade, check, and that is made on the back rank due to the king being stopped. That was an instructive game, I think. A lot of instructive moments. We're gonna start with me missing queen takes f5. Yep, it is losing. It is just straight up losing. Incredible. I did not even... Wow. I'm just better here, but I wanted to show this idea knight e5, and it completely fails. That's so spectacular. So this is one of these moments where, and white was better. Like, white obviously had the advantage positionally. There's this moment where you're pinned, but you can move your knight. You would just lose your queen, but you can take something and then take the bishop, because you're going to win their queen. But the problem is that after captures the queen, black gets a full bishop. That has been the problem. And my knight can win a rook, but I'm going to lose more material for it. That's why knight takes e5 was never working. That's why I was playing knight e3 and king h2. Like, I was just playing these sort of positional moves. It was, by the way, instructive how my opponent damaged their structure in order to create an attack on the same side. Very instructive, very nice idea. However, here I should have just gone back, attacked the bishop, put the bishop here, and kept fighting for the light squares. Played like knight h4, right? With pressure. Maybe played f4 in the future, but definitely like queen f3. And just, you see what happens. Like, black is stuck. Black can't move forward because of their compromised pawn structure. They will probably need to start sacrificing pawns, which I probably shouldn't even take. But that is sort of the concept. And that is why when I traded my bishop on g5 for the knight on f6, that has an explanation. The explanation is I open my opponent's king. The second explanation is they immediately have two weaknesses. The third explanation is the light squares are really damaged. I showed that in the previous game, where if you trade a bishop for a knight, the color complex strength and weaknesses change. And yeah, then I went for this knight takes e5, and knight f5 is this is a wild concept where the queen is hanging, this queen is hanging, and the reason why this works now is because I can play knight e7. There's a hanging knight. There wasn't a hanging knight in the previous version, which is so insane. But I played this move and was like, oh my god, there's this. You get a knight, you hang your queen, but I'm hanging my queen, and then if you take this, my knight is hanging. It's very complicated stuff. Like it's understandable to kind of miss queen f5, but the point is that it's a desperado. That's what that's called. You're both gonna lose queens, and there's no way to enter the capture chain or the capture sequence. And of course, you know, I should not have gotten involved in any of this. This endgame is winning for white, but it's nothing special. But once you lose a second pawn, it's really bad. If my opponent played king g7, I probably would have slow played the position. But this is this is holdable for black. It's just a pawn, and like I said, opposite colored bishops, tough to win. So I went for it at the completely wrong moment, and yeah, queen f5 was quite a special move that I sat here going, oh my god, if they play that, I'm gonna end up down a piece. But that was the series. I was supposed to play 5 games. I don't know what happened there to the person in the middle. That's life. But that's that. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the chess deck if you would like, and I will see you in the next episode. Get out of here.